So hello teachers, how are you? Just wanted to go over some test training with you today. So unfortunately I'm having to do some of this test training virtually because I leave early on Monday and Wednesdays for class. And so just to kind of lighten the load up by Miss Neal, I wanted to kind of just go over everything, and then if you have questions about anything that's mentioned in this video, you can ask Miss Neal and she'll be more than happy to answer those questions. So I'm going to jump right in. And so of course you have received your testing packet, and so in that packet you will find a read aloud feature. And so of course you know that our students test their science benchmarks, and in this case mock EOGs, on the computer. And we've had a lot of practice with this year. So again, this is just a reminder of if you're not sure about how to activate the read aloud feature on the computer. Also for math as well, I said science, but also for math. That's just going to help you to kind of know where to go to hit edit and to make sure that the student can have access to the read aloud. So that's the read aloud feature handout. Also, you will find in your packet that there's a LexIB handout for our third grade students. So our third grade students will, of course, they'll take their third grade mock EOG in addition to the LexIB test. And so there are some really short instructions that go along with that. And so I just want to make sure that you are aware of that. Also, there's a Case 21 resource sheet. Really, you won't need this sheet, but it's just a reminder of just some reminders in dealing with Case 21. Case 21 is still relatively new to a lot of us and new to some of you as teachers. And so it's just a resource sheet just to kind of remind you of some things while your students are testing. Also, ROA reminders. In your packet, you have a sample ROA, and of course, it basically just highlights everything that you're supposed to do in your ROA. So far this year, our ROAs have been pretty clean. That means that most of you guys have done a great job, but we just want to make sure that we're really making sure that we are covering all the things that we need to cover. Even though I will go over your ROAs once you turn them in to me, just to double check to make sure that there are no mistakes, but we still want to make sure that we do it right the first time. And so of course, making sure that you fill in, first of all, making sure that you know what accommodations the students are being offered and how to successfully execute that. But you also want to make sure that you're filling it out correctly. So when you check off that you have offered those accommodations, that middle column is always yes, and you always write yes, I offer extended time, or yes, this student tested in a separate setting. You always want to make sure that you sign the top and the bottom and date it, and make sure that the student that you are testing, that there's their name on the ROA, because the ROAs do serve as a legal document. We want to make sure that we are offering our students and giving them opportunity to receive the accommodations that they are entitled to. In terms of benchmark items, I went through and kind of looked through each test. And so for ELA, second grade, there are 40 questions on the ELA for second grade, because our second graders are doing their field testing. Well, not field testing, but second graders are doing their practice test, so to speak. Third grade, there are 45 ELA questions in addition to the LexIB test, which is 20 questions. Okay. Fourth grade ELA, there are 45 questions, and fifth grade ELA, there are 45 questions. For math, second grade, there are 40 math questions. Third grade, there are 40 math questions. Fourth grade, there are 40 math questions, and for fifth grade, there are 34 math questions. Okay. And so again, those are the benchmark items on the test. Also, make sure that as we today, after your training, you will receive your code of ethics sheets that you can go ahead, that you will be able to go ahead and sign. And so that'll take care of that. Make sure, of course, again, the whole idea of the code of ethics is to make sure that we are legally following, and not just legally, but ethically following the expectations that have been set for us in terms of testing. So, of course, I'll get into this a little bit later, but you're not assisting students, you're not pronouncing words for students. You're just making sure that the students are testing in a safe and orderly environment. Phone collection, make sure that when your students, when they come in, before they even come into classrooms, we need to kind of get into the culture of collecting phones at the door. So once students kind of hit that door, it might be a good idea just to kind of get your little bucket or a Ziploc bag as they're coming in, just to let the kids drop them in at that point. Technically, they're not supposed to bring any cell phone devices into the testing site, period. And so we need to collect those at the door. Teacher expectations. Teachers, stick to the script. When you're reading the directions for the test, make sure that you are reading directly. Don't paraphrase, don't remix it. Read specifically from the script. It might be redundant by the time you get to day 2 or day 3 or day 4, but make sure you stick to the script. Do not deviate from the script. In no way are you allowed to assist students in any way. So again, make sure that we ethically model just the behavior that we're supposed to model as professionals. You are the only one who can handle test materials, okay? So even though you will have a proctor, and proctors will be trained, but proctors are not in a position to ever handle test material. So teachers, you will check out the materials from my office, and you will also bring the materials back, okay? If a student needs to use a restroom, students are allowed to leave the restroom, but you as the test administrator are not allowed to leave the site. And so again, the proctor can stand to the door and watch the student walk down the hallway. But at the same time, you are not to be left alone the proctor's not to be left alone with the test materials. And so again, for the most part, we do a pretty good job of that. But again, just making sure that the proctors are not handling any of the test materials. Okay. So teachers, proctors, we are not allowed to have technological devices within our setting. So, and this goes for like online stopwatches. You have to keep the time with the clock. And so if there's an issue as far as clocks, we'll just handle it. We'll get you a clock. But you can't keep the time on your phone. You can't have a Fitbit watch. You can't keep the time on like an electronic online stopwatch. We are allowed to have no electronic devices. Okay, so at no time is it okay to be on your iPad. At no time is it okay to be on your laptop. At no time is it okay to use any kind of technological devices. So of course, if you have an issue during testing, you use your orange placard in your testing box. So you slide it under your door. I'll be walking around. I'm sure Ms. Walker will be walking around. But if you have an issue or an emergency, you can slide your orange placard and someone will deal with you. Now, of course, quite natural, because we're spread out, we'll just be making rounds. And so what I normally do is every 15 minutes, I'm like making rounds, peeping in the classrooms, making sure people are good. Okay, so no phones, no electronic devices, no Fitbit watches. The only thing that you really can do is just monitor and supervise while the kids are testing. And I know that's kind of a bit much, but again, that's just that. So we can't grade papers, we can't lesson plan, we can't go ahead and get things together for the next class. We can only supervise and administer the test. So again, use your orange placards. Making sure you are circulating and monitoring. And that's important, because sometimes kids they look like they appear to be taking the test, and then you're 45 minutes or 50 minutes in and we realize the kid's on number 2. We need to make sure also that, especially with our second grade who are taking this test for the first time, we need to just make sure that they're bubbling correctly, that they're bubbling in the correct area. Even though we do go back behind, just scratch that. I was about to say we go back behind them and clean up bubble sheets, but because we're scanning with Master Connect, we don't do that. But still, it's important that these kids make sure that their sheets are clean and that they're legible. Also, as you're monitoring, if you see anything that's not right, that you feel, like it looks like a kid is testing is almost over and the kid's only on number 10, then you might want to write that, especially if they have an ROA. You might want to write that on their note on their ROA. You may want to slide your placard under the door and let me know, so that we can kind of get an idea of what we need to do to accommodate the student when it comes to the makeup sessions. Test material security. You will sign your test material security agreement. And even though really that's just saying that while the testing material is with you, that it will be secure. But of course, we know that all the test materials will be kept locked in my office. And there's limited accessibility to that too. So we all have to be accountable in terms of the test material perspective. Sign out forms. When you check out your testing material, you will sign out a form every morning. Make sure that you count behind me to make sure you have ample books. Make sure you have ample answer sheets, so that when you get to your classroom, you have everything you need. I'll be honest, every now and then you may be, sometimes you might be short a pencil or something like that. But immediately make sure that you're going through your box, so that before you leave my office, everything is good and you don't have to call back, because once testing starts and I'm floating around, it's kind of hard to reach, especially when you don't have access to your phone or anything like that. Speaking of phones, make sure that when we begin to test your classroom phones, it's a good idea. You don't have to unplug it, because I mean sometimes it resets and that kind of stuff, but it's a good idea just to turn your volume all the way down, or what you can do is you can just take it off the hook. So of course, because we're circulating around, you won't be able to use your classroom phone during that time frame. Okay. Make sure all the work in your classroom is covered up. So anything that's academically related to anything that we've covered, it doesn't matter like the curriculum area, we need to make sure your walls are covered so there's nothing that kids can look at to try to figure out answers to questions or anything like that. So since we know that we're starting on Friday with ELA, regardless, let's just plan that everybody has their walls covered by the time that you leave to go home on Thursday afternoon, so that when testing starts on Friday morning, that we're secure and all of that. After testing, the only thing that kids can do is read a book. They cannot play games. They cannot play tic-tac-toe with another student. They can read, or they can, put their heads down and they can rest, or they can go to sleep. That's the only thing that the students can do after testing. So again, let me repeat. They can read, they can put their head down and just, get some rest or take a nap, but they cannot play games. You cannot, you can't do that. So for those of you that will be testing kids in areas where maybe there are some resources, like for example, I'm just using this as a random example. If you were testing in the speech room, Miss Phoenix has, a lot of resources that she uses for her kids in some of her games. We are not allowed to use those games. We're not allowed to touch anything in there. So again, students can read a book, or they can put their head down. What do teachers do after testing? After testing, teachers, you are not allowed to lesson plan. You're not allowed to start looking at your next unit when the kids come in. So when you have a group of kids, teachers, you are just basically supervising, making sure that they remain quiet and orderly until all testing is done. And we'll make an announcement over the intercom. In the morning to let you know testing has began, and we'll also make an announcement when testing is over. So please don't start your testing until you hear the actual announcement over the intercom. And so as I'm looking at my time, I wanted to keep this kind of within the 15-minute mark. So again, I've kind of outlined like most of the things. Again, the only difference is we are kind of following, it's just like we've taken benchmarks all year, but now this is the mock EOG, so we want to make sure that we model the entire process just as if we were going to take the real EOGs, which we will in May, which is next month. So we really need to make sure we get it right. We need to make sure that we're following all the procedures. We don't want to have any major screw-ups and have any kind of misadministration or anything like that. But we know that mistakes happen. But I think if we take a proactive perspective and stance, then we can kind of troubleshoot those things before they happen. And so again, I hope this covers kind of everything. Ms. Neal is here. And so if you have any questions about anything that's not covered on your handouts or your test training packet, there should be instructions in your packet. So these are the same case 21 instructions that we use for benchmark. We're just using them for mock EOG. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. Feel free to ask Ms. Neal. Ms. Neal has plenty of testing experience. Though she's in MCL position right now, she's obviously a former administrator, and so she's very knowledgeable as far as testing goes. And so I really appreciate you, Ms. Neal, for agreeing to carry this out. And so to make your job easier, I want to do this virtually, and then if they have any real questions, they can ask you in person. So again, thank you guys so much for what you do. Testing season is almost over. We got mock EOGs, and then we have the real EOGs, and then we're done. So having said that, let's really make sure we go hard. Let's really focus. If I can do anything to make your testing experience that much easier, please let me know. It's a very stressful time for me as well. Just making sure things are done correctly, things are done with fidelity. But again, if you catch any mistakes or anything like that, please let me know, as I caught one yesterday on the test plan. So the test plan has been sent out. Day 1 testing for Friday has already been sent out. A Connect Ed will be sent out on Wednesday night at 6:30, and letters will be sent home to students on Wednesday as well. And so so far we have covered all the things we need to cover, and I've got 5 seconds. And so thank you guys so much for being part of this test training. Have a great day.